Hello, everybody, and welcome to the new workshop. Today, we are going to co-host this workshop with my co-founder, Vladimir Blagoevich. And it was a while since a last one workshop about account-based marketing. And I would love to give you a quick idea. So today, we are going to chat about the framework we are using and how to go from zero to ABM. The reason why we decided to host a workshop on this specific topic is because last year we got lots of inquiries about building account-based marketing. And earlier we used to share specific ABM tactics, discussing different ABM campaigns, sharing different case studies. But when I analyzed all the inquiries and I was reflecting on them, I saw one clear thing or basically one thing that wasn't clear for everybody. How to, if a company is not doing ABM, how basically launch ABM and how to make it a part of their standard marketing and sales operations. So that's the goal for today. We are going to share with you our framework, 9 steps, how to go from zero to ABM, how to launch a small pilot campaign, how to analyze it, right? And how later build ABM team and make ABM a part of your marketing operations. Because the truth is that ABM is not a silver bullet and is not a standalone strategy. It's just a normal strategy that should be operated in a mix with demand generation and with other marketing activities. So before we'll move forward, a quick question: where you guys are all coming from? Let me know in a Zoom chat. Cool. Barcelona, Valencia, Dallas, Texas, New Jersey, Americans, Netherlands, India, Belgium, Singapore, UK, Germany. Wow. Cool. Yeah, so that's huge. We have cool international audience. So I believe you'll be able to learn a lot. So quick agenda, basically 4 things that we are going to discuss today. The first one is 9 steps you must take to go from zero to ABM, as I mentioned. Next one, a question that people quite often ask us: what is the minimal viable campaign, right? What do we need to launch a pilot campaign? So we're going to share with you the roles, functions, and the resources you'll need to launch pilot ABM campaign. Now, the next one is how to structure your ABM campaign. What are the most important parts of ABM campaign? And finally, we'll focus on how to integrate ABM in your marketing and sales operations. Again, we'll try to keep it simple and short while sharing with you some examples. If you'll have any questions, if something won't be clear, feel free to share your questions in a Zoom chat. There would be also time for Q&A, so you would be able to unmute yourself, tune in, and ask your questions live. So everything should be covered. If you are ready, let's start. The first part of our webinar would be dedicated to 9 steps to go from zero to ABM. And the first one is basically the team alignment.
Now, why is team alignment important? The first thing to realize about ABM is that it is a play between marketing and sales. You can't do ABM just as a marketing team, not working together with sales. This is not going to work. So that's really important to realize. And the second point is that ABM is essentially a focused play. So you are not targeting the broad market, you're targeting a very narrow market of carefully curated and selected accounts. Now, if this is what you're doing, it's all about figuring out how do we stack the odds in our favor. And that's why it's so important that you're aligning your team, both sales and marketing and executive team, on those best accounts. So first of all, obviously, you need to align everybody on the same goal. You need to have everybody looking in the same direction, right? So you need to know what the goal is. Is the goal to close the net new accounts? Is the goal to increase, market share? Is the goal to expand your deals with existing accounts? Whatever the goal is, you need to make sure that everybody is looking in the same direction. Obviously, also, what kind of metrics are we going to use, and what is the meaning of success for us? And we are going to share some metrics that we use later on. Obviously, another thing, if it's all about stacking the odds in your favor and selecting the accounts where you make the most chance to win the deal and to have, actually a good size deal there, it's really important to nail the target segments and to nail the ideal customer profile, including detailed criteria that you will use to say, okay, this account is a good fit or this account is not a good fit. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And I mentioned this several times. You are in ABM, you're not working on a broad market, you're not working on industry and on job titles, you're actually working on a given set of accounts. This may be, whatever, if it's like one pilot campaign, maybe even as little as 10 accounts. If it's like a program that you're going to run for a while, it may be something like 50 accounts, 50 to 100 accounts. So you really want to align on that as well, so that, obviously, like a marketing budget is never unlimited. So you don't want to spend marketing budget on warming up accounts that your sales are never going to be activating, and vice versa. You don't want your sales to be working on the accounts that marketing didn't help warm up. Like I mentioned, you want to be focused on a segment. Why? Because in a segment, you're going to have a much better buyer message fit. You're going to be much easier to work with partners, influencer in that segment. It's going to be much easier for you to basically to market, activate, and eventually also close those deals. And you also want to be very aligned on how you're, like I mentioned, like how you're messaging, how you're positioning yourself in that segment. But also because, especially if you're working with a team, it's really important to let everybody also voice their vision of the challenges and the bottlenecks that they expect, and so you can deal with them and that you know what you're solving for. Okay, so next, let's talk about account segmentation and qualification criteria.
And this is really crucial. As Vlad mentioned, you need to have an ideal customer profile, correct? Now, when it comes to ideal customer profile, one of the most common mistakes when it comes not only to account-based marketing, but in marketing but to marketing and sales in general, is building your ICP based on firmographic data and probably geodata, and that's it. So the truth is that not all accounts were created equal. I always ask a question: if one company can generate 10 times more revenue, 20 times, 50 times more revenue, why this company should be approached the same way as all other companies? Do you agree with me? Let me know in the chat. Does it make sense to approach companies that can generate 20 times more revenue the same way as you approach on all others? Curious to hear your thoughts. My point, of course not. So my point is, like, it makes no sense, right? So that's why in account-based marketing, by default, if we look at ABM theory, right, we have 3 tiers. We have tier 1, the companies with the highest revenue potential. Then we have tier 2, the companies with medium revenue potential. And we have tier 3, companies with the lowest revenue potential. Right. And when it comes to the true ABM, basically you need to play it with tier 1 and tier 2 accounts. The difference is that when it comes to tier 1 accounts, it means that you completely personalize your campaign, that you completely personalize the way you are marketing to these accounts, what you are going to say to them, what value propositions you are going to show to these specific accounts, right? What the benefits these specific companies can get out of your product. This is the most crucial. While for tier 2, you do the same way of personalization, but not one-to-one. You do the personalization per specific job role. And tier 3 is basically what most companies, most B2B companies are doing. This is mass market, right? When you have a specific segment and basically you prospect companies the same way. It could be conversational ads on LinkedIn. It could be cold outreach. It could be, using the same ads, etc. So the goal of ABM is basically where it comes from. It comes from prospecting enterprise accounts, right? It's basically emerged in enterprise segment. And if you have long sales cycle, right, and let's say your ACV is above 500K, 1 million, etc., you must personalize your marketing, and that's the key for the account segmentation, right? You not only apply the revenue potential, what else makes sense? Disqualification criteria. Because as I said, the reason that companies feed your ICP because of firmographic data, right, doesn't mean that these companies might have a need. Just to give you a precise idea, when we worked with one fintech company from Israel and we were prospecting companies from UK, there was one unique thing that we learned from the customer interviews, that when we were prospecting the CFOs of these manufacturing companies, if CFO was holding this position for the first year, usually these people in their first year never made these financial, let's say, expensive decisions to purchase a new stack. Now, the best case for us were the people who were in between the 2nd to 5th year. And this was our sweet spot. And if they hold this position more than 5 years, usually they already had their own solution and they were not willing to change the vendor or solution. And that's crucial, right? That's why you need to have this disqualification criteria. Another idea, so we work with software development companies. And let's say if they are targeting tech companies from United States, we always take a look at the buying committee. And if we see that, let's say, CTO or CEO got an education in Soviet Union or came from Soviet Union, ex-Soviet Union countries, or from India, usually we disqualify these accounts. And it's not because we don't like or we have something against these countries. No, it means that these people usually have strong network in these countries and they can find cheaper vendors. That's the only reason. So this is really crucial. And when you'll nail it with your salespeople, with your executives, you'll always have a good list of criteria to narrow down your focus and end up with a quality account list. And when you'll finish it, the next question is and basically the next point is to define the minimal skill set and just basically check if you have the skill set to launch pilot ABM campaign. When it comes to the skill set, so
I can just jump in a little bit on that, because I get this question so many times, right? And everybody wants to know, okay, but what are the kind of skills that we need to have? And there is this idea that you need to be familiar with this specific ABM tooling that is out there, this tech stack, that it's a very complicated campaign to set up. But really, one of the best campaigns that we ran with our clients was when we had this young, I think she was only 21 years old. She didn't have B2B marketing experience. She just joined the company. She was only working there for a couple of months, but she was just so good at executing. What made her so good is that focus on execution. So it wasn't about, thinking too much and trying to be, obviously strategy is important, but it really is important that the people who are working on this are really focused on the execution. Done is better than perfect in this case. If you're following the process, if you're doing all the steps, right, the result will be good, even if not each step is done in a perfect way and you have, I don't know what kind of like special skills. The second one is project management. I'm sorry. The project management is important because there is like different moving parts in that campaign, and you're also working together with sales. So it's really important to have solid project management skills, or have somebody in the team who will be in charge, who is actually in charge of orchestrating that campaign with those skills. Next, it's copywriting. And I don't mean you don't need to be a copywriting star. You don't need to be able to sell with your copy as you would have to do, for example, for informational marketing, or when you're actually selling stuff online. In this case, you need to be solid at buyer-centric writing and copywriting. And we know a lot of people actually have that skill. Next, there is a specific skill that is very important, and it's something that is not actually too difficult, and we teach our clients account research. This is really important because as Andre explained, you're reaching out to, especially when you're reaching out to tier 1 accounts, to the biggest accounts, but even with tier 2 accounts, is understanding what kind of challenges do they have, what kind of priorities, key initiatives they will be running, so that you can understand how you can position your solution so that it makes sense to them. So how you can personalize your approach, basically, so that you increase it. Like if you remember, I mentioned it's all about stacking the odds in your favor. So how do you stack the odds in your favor of getting them to respond? Well, by doing the account research and then using that information and insight to personalize your approach. Next, really important is to be able, and for some reason we have noticed that some people are struggling with that, being able to interview your customers and buyers. And I'm not talking about sales conversations. I'm talking about being able to interview and to gather insights, maybe interview them as a part of a warm-up playbook. We'll share some examples in a moment. And then finally, obviously, you also obviously need to have salespeople on the team who are helping you with that campaign, because if you're not working with sales, if you're just running the warm-up and maybe starting to generate the opportunities, you're going to leave a lot of money on the table if you don't close that with sales. What kind of sales skills is basically opportunity discovery and creation, that part, and being able to do objection handling. Next, what do we have is the minimum viable technology stack. Muted. Andre, you're muted. I'm sorry, I have had to unmute him. I'm sorry.
No worries. So coming back. So as you see, the skill set is not that complicated. And basically, if you look back at the skills, that could be really launched by, basically these skills could be obtained by marketer and one SDR. Now the next question, which we receive quite often about account-based marketing, what kind of stack do we need? And my honest opinion is that you don't need to overcomplicate things, especially when it comes to starting with account-based marketing platform or with account-based marketing campaigns. The minimal viable stack is LinkedIn Sales Navigator, CRM, which could be free, right? You could use HubSpot CRM. Account and sales intelligence platform. And this is something that you could, again, in case if you want to track the, let's say, ABM, you could even use simple spreadsheets where you could set up the dashboard, or you could use Notion, as let's say in our case, we created everything in Notion. Next one is sales content management and sharing platform, or basically anything for sales enablement, simple content hubs, right? And the last one is intent data platform. So to give you a precise idea, we'll share our stack later in this webinar. But to give you an idea, the total cost of this stack shouldn't be more than, let's say, depending of course on the licenses, but it shouldn't cost you more than 200, 300 bucks. So LinkedIn Sales Navigator, if I'm correct, is around $75 per license. Then again, CRM could be really cheap. Next one, as I said about the, if you want to have a specific software to track ABM, which I don't recommend in the beginning, I highly recommend you to use Google Sheets or Notion or whatever you prefer, right? For the pilot campaigns, it could be really, again, cheap. The last one, content, or not the last one, the number 4, Content Hubs. We love Paperflight. Paperflight is not, again, it's not expensive. If I'm correct, it's around $40 per user. And finally, Intent Data Platform. So Lead Feeder is, or Happier Leads, they're around $50, $60 per month. You have Clearbit, recently launched Clearbit Reveal, which gives you 30 accounts for free per week or whatever. I don't remember the exact number. But what I wanted to say is that, again, if you have budget, go for, you could purchase more expensive software, right? But keep in mind that it's not really important, because the pilot campaign should be really small, and this would be enough to start with. And when you'll finish when you'll just build your stack, the next step is planning your pilot campaign.
And like Andre mentioned a couple of times, it's really important to start small and keep it simple. You have to recognize you're implementing a new process, you're learning you're going to be climbing a learning curve, if you like. So we like to keep things simple, start with a small pilot campaign, following the 1-1-1-1-10 principle, or basically saying that we like to start with one marketer, one SDR from sales, focusing on one geography, not focusing on multiple big regions or stuff like that, like maybe one country if you're in Europe, or one state if you're in the United States, one vertical. Really, like I mentioned already, there's so many reasons why this is a good idea. It's going to work much better. And 10 accounts in your pilot campaign. So I'm talking about starting small. You see how small you can start. Once you have that pilot campaign, once you have proven that this works, once you have actually developed your own first version of your playbook, you can start to scale that. And we are going to talk about how you can actually scale and integrate that later in your ongoing marketing operations. Next, let's talk about responsibilities and the timeline.
Yeah, exactly. So the next thing is, when you just orchestrated it, you selected the market, right? You defined who will be in charge of what in your campaign. The next step is defining the roles. Who would be doing the account research? Who would be doing the, let's say, who will be writing the pitches? Who will be reaching out? This is exactly these nitty-gritty tasks. One thing that I have noticed why ABM campaign usually fail is because let's say marketers don't have a clear orchestrations. The worst thing you can do is come up to your sales team and say, hey, let's do ABM. So when sales will reply back, but what do you mean? What exactly should we do, right? You say, okay, so you need to reach out to specific accounts at one point. This campaign will have high chances to fail. You need to come up with like a clear list of tasks. What we are going to do, who will be in charge of what, when we need your support, who you'll be reaching out, etc., and explain what marketing will be in charge of. Again, this is like a specific example of one of our campaigns. Just try to include as much details as possible, right? And set up these responsibilities so there won't be surprise, and at one point you won't hear from sales, well, I'm not ready, or I'm busy with other things. That's really crucial to your success. When you'll define this tasks, when you'll set up these responsibilities, right? The next sync, not the last one, but the next sync would be basically closing the loop and creating the ABM campaign structure.
All right. So basically, if you're talking about the ABM campaign structure, we're going to go into details of each of these steps. So here is just the idea to give you an overview. Is you start with list building. You want to build a list of target accounts and buyers. You then work to enrich the accounts information about the information that you have about these accounts and the buyers using enrichment tools and research. We're going to talk about that. Then a step that is very often skipped or is done insufficiently well is the warm-up campaign. We'll talk a lot about that. We'll give you, I believe, probably like 4 or 5 different examples of the warm-up campaign. And then really important when we're talking about closing the loop is really basically making sure that those accounts that you're engaging, you're actually going the next step and generating those opportunities. That's why we talk about activation, and we're going to share some ways in which we are doing this with our clients and ourselves. And finally, really important is where you're also involving sales in these last steps is follow-ups and nurturing. So with that out of the way, we can start diving into the campaigns.
So the question, basically, you just asked this question in a chat, right, about the pilot campaign roles and functions. So let's review it. And the first thing that we need to review is minimal viable team, right? Again, we just try and, as you see, we are going from prod to narrow, right? From broad terms to specifics. So we introduced the 6 important skills. Now, let's discuss how it can be aligned within marketers, sales, and what should be done by the entire team. This is basically a screenshot with estimation. This estimation comes from our experience. Again, just don't use it. Oh, well, you can use it as a benchmark. This is more or less how much time will it take you to launch a pilot campaign. So what is required from marketer? Setting up ABM dashboard, which we'll share in a moment as well. Account list building. And next one, because marketers usually will be in charge when they will define this and when they will set up account segmentation criteria with sales, right? When they will have this alignment, they will be in charge of this list building, because the first sources of for account list building would be intent data sources, which Chris asked about in the chat, and we'll also cover this a little bit later. Next one, account and buying committee research. We usually add it to marketing, but you can agree with sales. If you want to pass it to sales, that's also fine. Next one is setting up and running up a warm-up play. That's crucial, and this is what we'll cover in a moment. Marketers, and that's the part of marketing, right? Because quite often we speak about account-based marketing, but it all ends with outreach. So it's not account-based marketing, but account-based sales, right? No, in marketing, we need to do the warm-up play. We need to, and when it comes to warm-up, it's all about basically connecting with strategic accounts and sharing what we do, learning the context, right? How might we help? How our product might be valuable to these specific accounts, and then brainstorming this final step on how we are going to present the benefits of our solution. Prepare minimal visible viable content hub, right? So that's something that we mentioned. When it comes to content hubs, what you need usually is providing the job role benefits, right? These specific account benefits from using your product, some specific industry on your segment case studies, etc. That would be enough. In some cases, it's also nice to provide ROI arguments. So if you have some sort of ROI calculator, or if you sell tech product, maybe comparison report might be also a good thing to add to your content hub. Personalized pitches. Again, it's upon mutual agreement. So if you agree that sales will be doing this, that's fine, but we usually pass it to marketing. Next one, buying personalized gifts and doing the direct mail outreach. And the reason why probably you guys know we are big fans of direct mail because it cuts through the noise. And also last week we had a chat with Kyle Lacey from Lessently. Now it's Seismic, right? And Kyle mentioned that their most successful campaigns were also direct mail campaigns. We'll also touch this in a moment. Updating website and LinkedIn profiles with new value proposition. By new, we mean this segment-based value proposition. When it comes to sales, what should be done by sales? It's, of course, connecting and engaging with strategic accounts. Not only accounts, but the buying committee members. Let's make it clear. Not only with the decision makers, but all four roles, the influencers, the bloggers, and the champions. Write down the follow-up emails, do the follow-up and direct mail outreach, and teamwork. This is something that we have already covered. Tier segmentation and qualification, sales activation playbook, value proposition hypothesis, and cadence structure, right? So the next step is basically the ABM campaign structure. How we just presented you 5 core pillars of ABM campaign structure. Now let's review them.
All right. The first step or the first part of any ABM campaign, obviously, is very important, is having the right account list. Now, if you remember at the beginning, we spoke about choosing the target segment, why that is important. If you're talking about the first pilot campaign, you're talking about one vertical that you're focusing on. So you have like a clear idea about your ICP. And if you remember, we also spoke about this detailed account qualification and disqualification criteria that you can use to build this list. So by now you should have all this information to build the right list. Now, when we are doing the pilot campaign, and later you will see how we use that also while we're integrating that later in the marketing operations, it's always a good idea to check the intent data sources. And by that, I mean, very, very simply, people who are visiting, if people or the accounts where you have people from those accounts visiting your website, maybe attending your webinar. So they're showing some kind of engagement or interest, especially if they are checking, some of the key pages on the website. This is one of the things, right? We'll show some other intent data sources that you can use. Next, you want to look at your frozen deals. So you may have some deals in your pipeline that are not moving, so you can include those also in your initial campaign, right? And obviously, another thing, depending on your goals, you may, and I think it's always a good idea to include a few at the beginning, a few of the existing accounts. There is different reasons. There is a reason, obviously, to have some kind of a social proof, and you'll see why, but also that obviously the main reason is that you want to be able to identify expansion opportunities, right? So again, ABM is all about stacking the odds in your favor, of closing those deals, of having good results with those companies. So that's why it's so important to pay attention while you're building the account list. And these are a couple of like hacks or things that will help you to increase that chance to stack the odds in your favor.
So the next step is basically when you identify these accounts, the next step is doing the account research and enrichment, right? So you identify the accounts, you qualified them. Now your goal is figuring out if there is a fit at all, right? And there are 5 core things, or 5 core pillars of account research. The first one is customer interviews. And the reason why we always speak about customer interviews, because this is the way how you can identify. First of all, you can see if you do the, let's say, if you have built the initial list and then you do the customer interviews, you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. First of all, aside from validating your value proposition, right, and understanding the way your customers are buying, you could basically benefit, you could get 2 benefits. The first one is that you can see if there are common connections and you can ask for an intro. That's the lowest hanging fruit. That's the lowest hanging fruit, leveraging your network. The second one is that with the help of customer interviews, you'll be able to identify the buying committee. you can quite often we ask, can you describe your buying committee structure? And usually people name the decision makers and they have zero clue about 3 other roles, about champions, about influencers, and about blockers. But the truth is, if you are not targeting micro startups, if you are targeting mid-sized companies, enterprise companies, the higher you are going, right, the more people will be influencing your deal. And the more people you'll be able to engage and connect with, the higher chances to close the deal you'll have. Next one, leveraging qualification keywords. Remember the example I mentioned about software development companies, right? About the education where the country where they came from. So another idea I will give you a good example with one of the companies. We used qualification keywords when we defined the specific market. We were looking for people who have mobile SDK, for example, on their LinkedIn profiles. And the reason why, because this is the way how we can identify people who are in charge of this specific direction of development, right? So this is something that you need to leverage. Always think about what kind of keywords your target accounts, or basically buying committee members from your target accounts, can put on their, let's say, LinkedIn profiles. Next one, common connections. This is something that I mentioned. Like if you analyze the network and you'll see common connections, don't hesitate and always ask for an intro. In this case, you'll have much higher chances to get at least reply back. Analyze press releases and interviews. These are the core insights to understand where your target account is going, what they are working on, what are their priorities, etc. Try to find as much information as possible. Also check the profiles of buying committee members, right? Quite often they share. Don't limit yourself to LinkedIn only. Why? Sometimes these people could, it's not obvious, right? But these people could be on Instagram, and on Instagram, they can share pictures from the baseball game or from, let's say, the meeting they had and announcing some things, right? And why I mentioned the baseball game, if you know that these people are the baseball fans, you could use this as an idea to buy a personalized gift, right? It could be a glove, it could be a baseball ball or whatever it is, right? Or t-shirt of a team this person supports. So these are the core ideas. This is something that you need to use for the account research. Once you'll finish it, the next step would be doing the warm-up play.
All right. So this is one of the steps that is often missed, and it's really, really important. It makes a huge difference. So instead of getting replies from maybe 1, 2, or 3% of the people that you're contacting with warm-up plays, you can increase that to up to more than 70%. And these are real case studies. So what kind of warm-up plays that we often use? Basically 4 types that we are going to talk about today are content collaboration. Content collaboration is one of our favorites. Basically, if you think about it, who do your buyers trust? Well, your buyers don't really trust you if they don't know you. They don't trust your brand, especially if you're in a sales role. Who do they trust? Well, they trust their peers, their colleagues, they trust industry influencers. So the play here is actually co-creating content with them, but also co-creating content with your target buyers. And you will see why that's important and how that works. But it's really a play that works really, really well. Next one is events, and we are going to share a couple of example events. These can be webinars like this one, can be specialized small group webinars, roundtables, but it could be as well larger online or offline events. We are a big fan of online summits. You probably know our yearly Fullfunnel B2B marketing summit. We are actually going to do 2 this year. The next one is social engagement. And we are going to show you some examples of how you can engage your buyers using social networks like LinkedIn and use that as a kind of your warm-up play. And finally, we are also going to share a few examples of how you can actually use ads, personalized advertising for personal advertising, but also for content distribution as part of your warm-up play, right? So before I zoom in into these examples, I think I failed to mention, like, why do you do the warm-up play? I was talking about the response rates, but basically, if you think about reaching out to somebody and they don't know you, like, this is one of the first things that people use to determine whether I'm going to read your message or not, is whether I know you, right? If I see a message from somebody, I don't know them, I'm going to immediately pay less interest to that message than if I know that person. And so with the warm-up plays, you're creating that know, like, and trust factor that helps you get those better results. Let's start with content collaboration. One of our favorite plays is actually the podcast play. And I'm not talking about launching a huge popular podcast with, thousands or millions of downloads. I'm talking about using the podcast as a tool to connect to your buyers. So instead of actually trying to create content that your buyers will like, your primary focus here is generating buyer conversations. So you're actually inviting the buyers on your podcast and doing the interviews. Now, what's really cool about it is that you're getting a chance to talk to them and think about it. What is the best way for you to research target accounts? What is like the number one? Can somebody like think about it? Like, what is for you like the best, if you have to choose of any, like, you can buy any tool that will give you all sorts of insight or whatever, like, what would be the best way for you to research target accounts? Anybody has an idea? No? Well, from my interviews, ask them directly. Thank you very, very much, Cora and Dominic. Absolutely. There is no better way to learn about the target accounts than talking to the buyers who work at those target accounts. And that's exactly the play here, right? So we are interviewing them, we are asking them questions. And actually the trick there is that in the podcast interview, you even have like a very specific moment, maybe not during the interview itself, where you can ask really these qualification questions. Next example of a warm-up, content co-creation as a warm-up play is market research. And I promised to Winston that I will kind of remind him about, he asked, so what if we don't have social proof? What if we are new in the market, that we are, maybe we're in a startup mode, or maybe we are going into a new market? Well, a market research play is really an excellent way to break into a new market, because not only that it allows you to interview the buyers, so you're actually, again, you're co-creating with them. You can see some examples here when we did this for the food industry, where we were interviewing like production managers and quality managers about the challenges with like disrupted supply chain due to COVID or whatever, or the other example where we did it with 146 industry sales and marketing leaders. Basically, you're actually going out there and you're interviewing, you're getting the exact same kind of information from them, but as a result, you're also creating expert content that you can share, which is really cool because it allows you to start those conversations even if you don't have social proof, and learn a lot about that target market and basically refine your value proposition. Next, events. And I promised you that I will talk about, we are going to talk about two types of events. So I'm just going to finish my part here with explaining like niche events, which we ran, especially if you can find a partner. In this case, we found a partner. It was a kind of an accelerator where we work with them to organize a very niche event, one to few, as it says here. Basically, I think maybe we had like 10 target accounts in there. But what this allowed us to do was to really make it a very specific. So before the event, actually, we reached out to them with the help of the accelerator. We reached out to the people who were participating in the event and asked them about their biggest challenges and what they would like to learn about during this event. And one of the biggest challenges was about, okay, scaling internationally, going abroad. So we actually like made a custom webinar for this group of people addressing their biggest challenge?
So that's a good example. And basically, if you have these accounts, right, just to give you an idea, you don't need to have accelerator, right? That's just was a specific example. In some cases, you could do the market research, which could be a nice way. So how to mix warm-up plays, right? So you could do the market research, or you could do the podcast interviews. And then when you know these challenges, right, you could also reach out to companies from your CRM that's, let's say, at the top of their engagement, and do the same, ask about their challenges, and then come up with the idea, what is the most common challenge, right? Plan the event and send personalized invites, right? And that's the way how you could play with it. Also, what is kept for now is personal offline events. We didn't attach it because still we are living in COVID era, but this is something that we always we used to do it with for ourselves, for our clients before COVID. For now, we'll just keep it. So the next one is warm-up events on a bigger scale, right? And what we'll have to do is mini summits or panel discussions or mix of both. A very good example was with our client from which basically produces hardware for companies that do smart home installations, smart home installators, right? They created a summit where they invited the 4 core audiences, ICPs, right? Companies that might be their potential customers, media. So media, of course, helps to promote and spread the word about this event. Next, thought leaders, people who run blogs or have video channels about the hardware and smart homes, right? And with the help of this, they were able to get around 3,000 signups, and they had just out of this event 35 sales qualified opportunities and signed the 5 contracts right after it. So the next step is social engagement, something that we have mentioned, right? This is really crucial. Of course, it's optional. It's optional. It might work if your audience is active on social media, right? Because there are markets where you won't be able to use LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook to engage with strategic accounts. But if they hang out on LinkedIn, on Twitter, use this as a tactic. Try to reach out, try to connect, try to proactively engage, not leaving comments like, what a wonderful post, right? Or I love what you are sharing, but start meaningful conversations. And if you have some good case studies, right, you could use it to start the conversation, start to post these meaningful comments to create this awareness, right? To become noticed by your strategic accounts. That's crucial. The last one that you could use as a warm-up play for the pilot campaign, keep in mind that we are talking about the pilot campaign, right? We are going step by step from zero to ABM operations, is personalized ads. You could start as simple with you could just start using conversational ads, and that could be a standalone tactic, or you could mix it with multi-channel personalized retargeting, if you will. And again, of course, this will require budget, but don't invest a lot. Start as small as possible. Again, could be $500, $1K, whatever is available, whatever you could afford for the pilot campaign, and just play with it. But again, keep in mind that standalone let's say banner ads or case study promotion or whatever won't work. So I highly recommend you to mix it with personalized ads, with conversational ads, sorry. Conversational ads without multi-channel retargeting might work, but let's say this content targeting won't work perfectly without conversational ads. So keep this in mind. And when you'll finish the warm-up play, right, the next step is doing the activation. There is one thing that we didn't cover, but I would love to mention it. Keep in mind, we mentioned the timeline, right? So in your case, when you plan the pilot campaign, you need to define a timeline for warm-up the length of warm-up, right? So it could be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you'll define. And also the engagement threshold. What kind of engagement your target accounts should demonstrate that will mean that they are warm-up, right? That they are engaged. So you could do the outreach. And basically that's the part which we love to do. And this is all about direct mail.
All right. So activations are really important because, again, like I mentioned, if you're not doing activation, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And there are different ways to do it. We are a big fan of direct mail. And by direct mail, I mean, somebody asked, snail mail, posting stuff. And the way that we do this, it is using a personalized gift. In this case, you actually see a photo that I got from the buyer, from the decision maker, actually, of his wife. I think it was unpacking the gift that we send them. So it's always like something that is personalized. It's inexpensive. I'm not talking, you're probably budgeting maybe 20, 30, 40 bucks to do this. I think it's about making it personalized. Why do we do this? Why would you send an actual mail? And why do you even like add a gift to it? Well, basically because everybody's doing email outreach, everybody is doing LinkedIn. And in the era of LinkedIn and email outreach, direct mail stands out, especially when it's accompanied with a personalized gift. You're sending it with a courier like DHL in Europe or FedEx in the United States. They're used to get valuable stuff using with those couriers. They get a personalized gift, and the accompanying letter, which is actually something that replaces your cold mail, refers that you have 100% open rates and read rates, and we even had campaigns with 100% response rates.
Yeah, and basically when you send this direct mail swag, right, the next step is doing and why Vlad mentioned DHL and FedEx, right? Because there are two reasons. First of all, when you are sending via these couriers, your accounts, your receivers always will treat it as something important and urgent, right? Do you know anybody who got rid of DHL package of DHL swag, right, without opening it? Of course, no. And when people open it, they see this personalized gift, and they see the gift, of course, provokes their curiosity, and they are willing to check what's inside, right? The next step is doing the follow-up. And basically, you got the insights from the courier when the parcel was delivered, and that's a good time to do the follow-up. So if you had previous relationship, right, and you have direct contacts to these customers, our best recommendation is to record a personalized video and send it via SMS, or of course, it would be the task for salespeople, right? So recording the personalized video and sending it via WhatsApp or via SMS or maybe on LinkedIn, whatever, right? If you don't have this contact, so the next step would be, of course, send a quick email note. But also in this case, you should mention that you are going to call the next day. And the reason why you should call, because this is where the most important part of activation happens. The chances that all accounts will reply you back immediately are really low. So not everybody is up to, even, they checked it, they might not just send you email or message, hey, that sounds fantastic, oh, this is awesome, let's have a chat, right? There are some people who will do this, right? But you need to send this quick note. But basically, the most success we see is when salespeople do the phone follow-ups next day, because this is a chance, again, keep in mind, of course, this is a chance to close the opportunity or to move forward, right? Or to book the discovery call. Also, this is a way where you can overcome all the objections and learn, right? There was a question by Sandeep. He mentioned, like, how many accounts we should have. And I mentioned why we recommend to have 10, 15 accounts. Why? Because the chances that you'll be making mistakes in your pilot campaign are really high. You might not define the ICP well, right? You might make mistakes with account qualification, etc. And during these follow-up calls, this is a best way to learn from your accounts. You did the research, right? You know that this specific company has a need, and they say we are not interested. This is a chance to learn more, right? You could identify the root reasons why they are not interested, and then you could improve your qualification criteria, or you could overcome the objections. And basically, if something wasn't clear, you'll understand what should be refined in your copy, in your message, in your pitch, right? That's crucial. So always keep in mind that phone follow-up crucial. This is where the activation happens. So that was the breakdown. Next one is basically ABM dashboard and analytics, where you could track the progress of your ABM campaigns. And I think Vlad quickly covered this one, the timeline and sales follow-up cadence, and then I will share the ABM analytics.
Yes, what's really important is that, and I think Andre already covered it, so just a minute on this. Really important that you have exactly which step is done when, because there is this collaboration between sales and marketing. So it's really, really essential so the sales know when they should get involved and exactly what they need to be doing. In addition, it's also important to agree with sales on the follow-up cadence that they're going to use to actually go from the activation step into creation of the opportunities, right? So that's the first part of the dashboard and what you want to share with your team. Next, the actual dashboard.
Yeah, and exactly. You don't need to overcomplicate the metrics. Whenever it comes to B2B metrics and specifically ABM metrics, I love to share from marketing perspective the metrics that are relevant to executives and to salespeople. And it's all about pipeline and revenue. So to measure the efficiency of ABM campaign, you have, let's break it down. You have these core metrics, right? You have this core metrics as revenue and pipeline generated, but also you need to track the engagement. So here is a simple dashboard that you could build for yourself. Total accounts in the program. Right. Next one, replies, sales opportunities, cost per engagement, and the cost per engagement of you just include all the costs, right? The software you use. So basically your stack, if you did some, let's say, paid advertisement, if you used ads, then you include the cost of ads. If you send this direct mail swag, right, then you include the cost of it. And then you could easily calculate the cost per engagement, because that would be your benchmark for future. Next one is deals that were closed successfully, conversion to engaged accounts, acquisition conversion, right? Sales pipeline, value of engaged accounts, cost of acquisition, revenue, and campaign ROI. As simple as that. This dashboard is easily understandable by salespeople, by executives, and you could easily prove the efficiency of account-based marketing program to everybody in your company. So the next and the final part of our presentation, it took us almost 1 hour, but we'll try to cover this really fast, is how to integrate ABM in your marketing and sales operations. I mentioned that probably it will take you 2-3 pilot campaigns to really nail down your ICP, your account qualification, the message, right? What will resonate. So you learn from these calls, and then you'll see, okay, now I have really good replies. I'm satisfied with the cost of acquisition, and I'm going to scale and make it a part of my marketing and sales operations. So that's exactly what we are going to cover at the end. ABM team, I think Vlad will quickly cover this one, and then I will share the operations.
Basically, we covered part of it already. It's about, obviously, we were talking about the pilot team, right? So the team that you need to have in the pilot, but this is moving from there to actual operations. You need to have a number of roles. You need to have the roles of somebody who will do the research. It can be marketer. You can have a specific role, somebody helping you by doing the research of the accounts. The next, and when I say research, it's about collecting the information about the accounts, as we explained, but also basically doing the validation of the contacts. One of the questions was also about the address. This is also something that a researcher can do, call, and we can talk about it more in the Q&A, exactly how to do that. They can help you with verifying the address, whether they're working from home, and how to deliver the package, etc. Marketer, we spoke about it. The marketer can now take more time. I mean, initially for the pilot campaign, we have foreseen maybe like 30 hours here. You're obviously going to do more of that. We're going to talk about exactly how the ongoing marketing operations can look like in a moment. And then obviously with sales, you want to involve here, not necessarily one person, you may involve multiple people from sales in the ongoing operations. The key here is doing the pilot, showing the results, showing that it works, building your playbook so that other team members can A, feel motivated to do it, and B, have the actual playbook. You can also include other people like a tech assistant who would be helping you with some, more like mundane tasks, like, printing proposal, buying and sending gifts and stuff, which is very useful.
So the next one is basically defining sources of intent data, right? We mentioned some of them. Again, keep in mind, you can be as lean as possible, right? Using just few sources of intent data, or you could expand. Some ideas, LinkedIn engagement, right? You could basically, LinkedIn Sales Navigator will give you an idea of who visited your profiles. And if you also be doing the social engagement and what we used to call the LinkedIn all-bound game, right? If you'll be doing this, then you'll be seeing who is visiting, who is engaging with your content, who is visiting your profiles, and these companies could be added to your account list, right? The website visitors, right? The companies that are visiting your website. Of course, you need to set up some engagement threshold, right? What kind of engagement, what pages should they visit, right? With what content they should engage, etc. Next one, software like Bombora. Bombora is great because it provides you the data for specific keywords. Let's say it will give you, you could select the markets, you could select the industries, and then you could select the keywords like account-based marketing or B2B marketing consultant, right? And Bombora will be sending you the report of companies that are actively looking for this content on basically on the internet. Next one is mention, right? You could simply set up, again, you could find alternative to mention, right? But you could set up the alerts on social media to be notified when people are searching for specific content, right? Something like somebody could tweet, hey guys, who could recommend me a good guide on account-based marketing? And here you go, right? That's an idea. Again, that would be your goal, to define the right sources of intent data. In some cases, it could be niche publications, associations, etc. So keep in mind that that would be something that you should be developing ongoing, right? And the next step is basically disqualifying bad fit accounts and improving your account qualification criteria.
I think really what maybe we can add here only is we spoke about account qualification and disqualification criteria at the beginning. I think the key here is that every time that you're running a campaign, every time that you're in contact with people from the campaign, you will be learning new things about, well, maybe they were not a good fit because, I don't know, they're waiting for a new hire in as a CMO or something like that. So it's not a good moment. So if we know the specific insights we can use to refine our account segmentation, account selection, disqualification, or add new disqualification criteria. Next to that, if you're looking at the information like people visiting your website, engaging with your team on LinkedIn or whatever, it's also important to define engagement threshold, because a like or a comment is not necessarily going to be significant enough for you to use that as a signal to continue the conversation. So you want to be more precise about it. For example, you have specific pages that are more high value pages, product, features, pricing page, right? Number of times that they have visited, or number of pages, the amount of time that they've spent, etc. Now, actually, what's interesting is once you have this fairly clearly defined, both these qualification and engagement criteria, you can now outsource it to somebody who can do this for you. And this is exactly what we are doing. So Andre maybe can explain exactly how we do it.
Exactly. So you could have, again, in your ABM setup, we have this role as tech assistant, or it could be researcher, right? In our case, it's our junior marketer. And what you need to do is basically create a clear SOP, how to filter these sources of intent data, right? How to filter this data, how to qualify the accounts, how to do the research, how to assign the right tier to this specific account, and then to what SDR or to what marketer this specific account should be basically assigned. And when you'll do this, right, it becomes an evergreen operation. Basically, this person will be checking this every single day and will be sourcing your pipeline with new accounts regularly. And finally, your evergreen process would be really simple. These are the core 5 steps. You need to build an ABM team, right? Next one, create a pipeline sourcing stack, disqualify bad accounts, create a clear SOP, and start adding more warm-up plays. You shouldn't be doing just the podcast or just the conversational ads or just the events. The best results, the maximum ROI you can get from your ABM campaigns is when you'll be mixing multiple warm-up playbooks. And you guys asked also, Leonardo posted short testimonial about ABM playbook. Look, so we have last year we have published our 6 weeks ABM program, and this is on-demand course. This year we decided for it basically because we got a request from our tier 2 accounts, right, to do a more, let's say, meaningful engagement with them. So we decided this year to host the first pilot 6 weeks ABM bootcamp, or cohort course, if you will. And this is exactly where we are going to work closely with this pilot group to help them to launch ABM, or if they are doing ABM at the moment, to refine their ABM programs. So this basically, this would be a 6 weeks group training and coaching program, right? That includes 12 live workshops. We'll have private Slack channel. These workshops would be exactly on account research, on personalizing pitch, on doing on account list building, etc. Live, I mean that we, the same like right now, will sit on Zoom, right, and work closely on all of these things. Then we have these Q&A sessions every Thursday for 6 weeks, and will help you to build this entire pilot campaign from scratch. Or if you are doing something, if you are like doing ABM at the moment, will help you to refine it and basically get more results out of it. Example results, right? These are not hidden. You can always see these results. We have a bunch of case studies on our website. So this is something, if you are interested in, I would love Vlad to ask to drop the link to our content hub where you can learn more about the program. Keep in mind, we don't have this program on our website. We are not going to promote it actively. It would be only available for the webinar attendees if you want to attend, because that would be a pilot group. We have right now 12 companies that already sign up from Europe and North America, and we are not going to make it really big. So we want to keep it small because it requires a lot of our engagement, mine and Vladimir. And if you guys would be interested inside, you'll find the details. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And We are looking forward to help you with launching this. Aside from this, if you would prefer the on-demand course, the one that I mentioned and Leonardo also mentioned, I will include the link, and of course you are very welcome to pass it. That's it for now. Let's cover the questions.
Yeah, I'd say if you have questions, there were a couple of questions that I pushed towards the Q&A because we were kind of running a little bit on time. So I've just shared the link. I'll share it again. If you want to get more information, like Andre mentioned, we already have 12 companies who are participating, B2B companies. So what people are told us, basically, and the main reason for them was that it's getting more of our support, actually having the engagement and making sure that they're doing stuff and actually implementing what they learn and also learning from others. But with that out of the way, just wanted to ask quickly, if you have questions, I promise that I will address some of them. Is it still relevant? People were asking about sending direct mail, I'm sorry, and the address. If that's still relevant, I can address it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Just cover this one.
All right. So basically, there are a couple of ways. If you had an interview with a person during the podcast, during the warm-up play, essentially, during the podcast or a market research, it is a great way, it's a great moment to ask for an address. And sometimes I simply ask, what we do with all the podcast guests, we send a little gift as a sign of thanks. And, people just share that. And I just ask, is it a good place to send to your office or not? So that's like a very simple way to do it. You can also have your researcher yourself call the reception and ask. Again, a lot of companies are doing either the mail forwarding. So you can just ask, hey, by the way, I've had this interview with XYZ, or, we are working on like a market research together. And I just wanted to make sure that I have the right address. If I would send something, a person like a gift to this office, would they receive it? Yes or no? And trying to get the address from the, let's say, the gatekeeper, whether that's, maybe somebody working on the reception of the company or the main number. You will be able to get it like that. I know that some people come in the office once in a while to pick this up. Some people get it forwarded to home. Any other questions?
Meanwhile, what I want to say, guys, thanks a lot for sharing your feedback in the Zoom chat. It means a lot to us, seeing that it was valuable. I know that we are a little bit out of time, but we just wanted to share a really simple framework that you could use to go from zero to ABM, right? Mistakes to avoid, and then how to make it part of your operations. And your feedback is much appreciated. Thank you so much. Also, one quick thing, guys, Nicholas and Leo asked, basically, I know that there are some folks here that have already purchased this on-demand 6 weeks ABM playbook, right? So if you guys also purchase this playbook, you could use the price you paid for it as a credit for the bootcamp. So that would be discounted from the bootcamp price. Just reach us out if you would be interested to join in the program, and we'll send you a discounted invoice.
Yeah, YM, I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Otherwise, you asked about the price of the on-demand course and where you can buy. You can find it on our website. And about the bootcamp, you can find all the information in the link that I just shared, and that was on the last slide. Just drop it again if you want to check it out, or otherwise, all our on-demand courses can be found on our website, fullfunnel.io. So is there any other question that you would like us to address? Maybe like 1 or 2 last questions before we close this webinar.
Nothing. Cool.
No. So all is clear. Excellent. We are very much looking forward to hearing your successes with ABM. And awesome. I'm very happy about it. So Thank you. Thank you thank you very much for attending and all your great feedback. It was a lot of fun. Sorry for running a little bit over time. We are always just want to give you all our knowledge and information, and sometimes we run out of time, but definitely we had a lot of fun. Hope you had too.
Yeah, I would just cover the last one. Cora posted at the last moment. So basically the idea, how do you incentivize people to come to a brand new podcast with no audience? I will give you an idea. The first thing that you should leverage is your existing clients. Don't go to new audience. Just start with existing and past clients. This is your first step. And with them, you should publish the first episodes, right? And you have, again, you could get multiple benefits. Not only, first of all, of course, there is zero value for them to join, but you play with the relationship. Also, it's a good sign if you have a good relationship with your clients or not, because basically, if you have good relationship with your clients, they shouldn't decline your invite, right? You say, okay, we just launched this brand new podcast, and we want to feature you, we want you to be the number one or the second guest or whatever, right? So that's the key thing. You just start playing with this. And then when you record 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes, you'll have some data, right? You'll have the podcast, and you could reach out to new audience. And before reaching out to new audience, always leverage the network of the people that were already the guests on your show. Check if they have common connections with your strategic accounts. If yes, then simply ask, come prepared to the interview. If you know that they are connected to some people from your strategic accounts, just simply ask at the end, look, I know that you are connected to John Doe from company X. Would you mind to make an intro? I believe he could be a fantastic guest. As simple as that.
Referrals are the best way. I recently did an outreach to 11 accounts for podcast guests, and I just used simple referrals, asking people to connect me. I had 8 of them say yes. So this really works. There was a question from SP about the recommended case study marketing material required for pilot project. If you have the best thing you will get an A+ if you use an existing case study from the target vertical, right? If you don't have that, if you maybe have another case study you can use, that could be an option. Or if you don't have any case studies handy at this moment, here is one thing that you can do. And this is actually what we did with one client. They had nothing. And we actually we did a quick interview of their existing customer, which we, by the way, used later as a part of the warm-up play for social proof. But then we used the insights from that interview to create a case study very quickly. So this was a big, big help for us. Any other question? I think we can close this. Thanks again, everybody. You can run referrals if you have an enterprise.
That's definitely another story.
That's a totally other story. Yes. Yeah. But you can always reach us via LinkedIn, via email. Just respond to any of the emails that you will get from Andre. Just find us on LinkedIn. We answer each and every message that we get. Don't worry about it. If you missed your question, you can always just reach out to us like that. And I promise we will respond.
Yeah, or another way, just join. If you guys in our trenches community, you could always post a question there and tag me or Vlad, and we'll always answer it. If you are not in trenches, again, I will include link to the Followup email. Cool. Thank you so much again for attending this webinar, for the fantastic engagement, for the great questions, for your support and feedback. Much appreciated. I'm looking forward to helping some of you to launch ABM during this bootcamp. Aside from this,